Today is January 31st, 2015. Been another rough day, but a good day. And the reason is because I finally got to buy something I've been wanting to for a long time, probably 2 years or so. And that's bondage gear. I didn't really own a lot. I bought chains about 6 or 7 months back. Um, about 6 months, I think, bought my first dog chain, and and it's pretty awesome because hopefully someday there's going to be somebody out there, um, a guy who's strong and maybe a bear, or a cub or something that's like really strong and ripped, and he's just gonna want to dominate me. And late at night or when I'm super tired, I tend to want to bottom more, and it seems like during the day, or when I'm rested first thing in the morning, I could have a propensity to top, depending on the situation of the day. That's not really super important to a lot of people, but to me, bondage is, BDSM and things like that, is a way of eliminating harder things from your past. In my way, it's like if you can, through something consensual, do something that's more edgy and stronger and more overpowering than what you previously experienced non-consensually, it defeats the idea that those non-consensual actions had power, because it makes them sort of look foolish and childish compared to BDSM. Now, I'm new to it. I've had fantasies and different yaoi inspired me. Viewfinder is one of them, and another one I really like is called Sensitive Pornograph. And those are two of the best ones that I've watched. Haven't watched Viewfinder all the way through, but I've watched enough of it to know that it's like edgy and in the territory that I enjoy. Um, Wanted to meet up with this girl, was texting her, there was some miscommunication, I ended up at the mall, couldn't find a doctor's appointment, didn't sleep last night, basically subsisted on caffeine and ginseng today, primarily, and was just looking forward to coming home. I lost my keys. My parents locked me out for 40 minutes, and my dad said, oh, I'm gonna like open up the door. He didn't. Snapshot of my day was a pretty shit day, in a lot of regards, but then I finally made it to this convention called FanX, and I didn't think much of it because a lot of it I assumed was centered around um, comic books, which I value, but it was sort of a stage that I grew out of. Largely, I mean, I enjoy the occasional Marvel movie or whatever, but it's like not, I like Wolverine, I like Batman, I liked Avengers. I can't say I honestly um, would be dying to see any of them again. Like, if you look at cool shows like Ninja Assassin, like, I would own that, or The Last Samurai. I tend to be more Asian geared based on my interests. Now, um, there is like a lot of subjects I would like to cover, but I also don't want to take too long based on the fact that it's almost 2 a.m., which isn't actually even that late as far as I'm concerned. I usually try to get into bed by 2. I wanted to get in bed by 9 today, but I was texting this girl, and after the convention, which was largely just me going around and shopping, looking at all the stalls and whatnot, and I found this great place that sells bondage gear. And they do have a warranty, and if they're in town, they will fix stuff, has a lifetime warranty. And so they stand by their products, and it's leather. I bought a lot of really cool things, so that besides my chain, which I've showed you in previous videos, now I have 3 chains, and I'm big into chains with BDSM. I don't really understand ropes too well, or why people, at least guys, why they would want to be tied up by ropes. I could see maybe if you're out in a forest and you needed a camo rope or a green rope or whatever, and you were tied up to a tree, or you were something in that regard. Um, you know, it's just maybe even making a hammock out of a person and then um, penetrating them, or being. I've been more in a topping mood lately, so it's a little ironic. I was shopping for more bottoming gear, but I suppose it's interchangeable as long as you can find somebody who's also a little kinky. Um, Looked at different flails, ended up purchasing that, as well as some handcuffs um, that are just leather. They don't have an interior. Um, Probably a bit more rough on the hands, but I own, or the wrists, but I already own um, a lot of armor and stuff that's leather with studs, and like a shoulder piece, and a few other things that just make me think that, like, symmetrically, I really like the choker I got, and it looks actually pretty cute if I was bottoming. But the thing is I've bottomed a lot, most of the time. And then a few hookups I topped first, and I always ended up topping every person that topped me, at least a few times. But it wasn't something that I had as much confidence in the beginning, and now I feel like more comfortable with the idea. But because of my standards of hygiene and the fact that I really don't like wearing condoms that much, um, make it harder unless I'm in a committed relationship where I can trust the person and live with them, know they're not cheating, to participate in unprotected sexual intercourse with a man, and I am pro consensual sexual experiences before marriage. Um, if they're very passionate, it's sort of like fairly good. But if they come from a place of love, meaning you know the person, you love a lot about them besides just their body and their the more carnal, superficial drives, which in my opinion are a prerequisite. But making love should always be the ultimate goal, and I have made love a few times to men, or transgendered identified in an individual. Um, I think oral sex with like one other trans individual. Although he said he was gay, so maybe he was gay. It's his choice to call himself however he would prefer. Now, getting back to the cool things of the day, because no one wants to always hear about, these are the woes of everything. I mean, some of those things can be avoided with more proper planning, and essentially, it's my parents' home, and although it is uncomfortable to be 28 and to be back in this sort of very conservative, very close-minded place, I also recognize the financial benefits that come from not having overhead. And when you cut out like food and rent and everything, and then the other benefits you get of maybe getting my car fixed or getting a new cell phone or things like that, there's more. Although they haven't done those things, they said that they could help with the car and things like that, and it's nice of them to show generosity despite the fact that we are very, very different types of people. Because I used to be like them, I'm under scrutiny, but I think they feel their hands are tied in some regard, because the fact is I'm just not capable of being under scrutiny, because I'm not Mormon, I mean, it's like you can talk to an atheist all day about what you perceive he should know, but at the end of the day, he's still going to say, well, that's great, but I'm an atheist. And it's a very simple statement to just say that. But I value all religions, and I do value Christ, although I haven't been focused on him as much in the last couple of years. But I mean, less so in the last 6 or 7 months. You run into a lot of LGBT identified individuals that feel rejected by Christianity, and largely they are, in many cases. I was listening to a debate online, and that I could go on and on about that discrimination, and my dad made a good point. He's just kind of like, well, don't let that become your identity. And so, but because it's such a big part of my life now, when I'm under 30, and I feel like when you're a young adult and you're exploring, it's like, especially if you make it your focal point, if it's part of your religious belief, if it's part of a core belief, and that's the big thing, is like, you can't be a part of a religion very easily if your core belief is in direct opposition of one of their core beliefs on the same subject. There won't be congruency, and unless you want to live a double life for societal reasons, which I don't, but it would be extremely advantageous at this stage, you kind of have to consider the good parts, and maybe those are the activities and the social interactions you will get from that. But because I'm proud of being LGBT, and it really hit home today when I started coming out to random individuals in my everyday life. This girl who, after Kevin broke up with me, she talked to me on Facebook, we hit it off, and next thing she's wanting to FaceTime with me. She probably was wanting to FaceTime with me tonight, but I just couldn't get back in time. And and her name's Bray, and the nice thing is when I came out to her through text, because we had been talking and we tried to do voice chat a bit, but Wi-Fi was really crappy on my phone, and probably the area I'm in Bountiful was not that great, and then also moving into other parts of Utah, Salt Lake City, it just still wasn't working, and it really wasn't. I don't think the Wi-Fi was just my phone. It was a piece of crap. And my dad experienced a lot of issues with his phone, and I told him in the beginning we should get the best smartphone we can, because technology just becomes obsolete so quickly. It's almost like you have to buy the best and be willing to accept the fact that it's probably not going to be worth very much in like a year or like 5 years or whatever, for a computer or whatever, but then maybe more like, technology continues to increase. If you want to have something that's more relatable to other people, it has to be reliable. GPS goes out and you don't know your way around, you wander around for me an hour and 15 minutes trying to find this doctor's appointment, never found it. The thing is you have to prepare for that with contingency plans, and he kind of dropped it on me. He's like, oh, there's a cancellation, and I was caught up in my own things, and of course tired because I didn't sleep last night. I get anxiety being here because it's very unusual for me to be placed back in a setting where I don't have a lot of control over my personal life or my personal religious beliefs. Like, things are kept on a short leash, because they're what they perceive to be morality, which in my opinion, locking me out for 40 minutes and then not answering the door when I was knocking on all the windows and doors exactly like they requested was not acceptable in any regard and was extremely rude. It's very hard to accept. I had considered going back to that faith, just because of the fact that I want the sacrament, because I felt like when I was doing oral sex with guys, I still had what people call the Spirit of the Lord, and I know I felt it in that Christianity. But if you don't accept all those values and willing to believe all that stuff, that spirit, will not stay with you, is what we're taught. But praying Jesus Christ and specifically, and knowing that He's okay with my orientation, gives me the confidence to walk into an LDS church with a rainbow wristband on. Just not, maybe an earring. Just not hiding who I am. I'm probably going to do a clip-on because, for modeling and other societal purposes, it's like when you're out in public and you're with your boyfriend holding hands or whatever, You have to have a boyfriend who's gutsy enough to do that in a place where you are a minority and you are viewed as a quote unquote sinner. And that is really unfortunate because you cannot label somebody based on your own religious belief, because that's inherently, well, it just doesn't make sense. Think about it. And I tried to explain to my dad the zebra and horse analogy. I'm like, look, I'm a zebra. You guys are all horses. I can't convince you that I'm a zebra. Look at the stripes. I'm not like you. And if I roll around and try to become a horse, I'm not going to be. It's not that we're separate species exactly, but it's almost like I have the ability to fall in love with both the white horses and also the black horses, because I'm a zebra, I'm both. And then the horses who are just kind of, they're kind of half and half, but they don't really know, or they feel that they are one thing. They may be, their body may be a black horse, but inside they feel like a zebra, or they feel like a white horse. And those horses I love too, just like I love other zebras. Although other zebras are far more relatable, they also carry, the same amount of baggage I do. And I do my best through Kundalini yoga, through meditation, through different medications, and sometimes substances, to kind of detach myself from that. I even had a beer tonight just because it's hard to cope when you're with a girl and you don't know if she's going to accept the fact that you're pansexual, that you're not straight. Girls want that reliability. They don't want you to. They have this weird idea that you're just going to run off with a man, and it's like that is absolutely not true. For me personally, being what many people term bisexual, um, I am very horny. I do have a high libido, and they think that you would just like fuck everything that moves. But the fact is, I don't care about that. I want to make love to the person I love, and or people. I mean, I don't throw that idea out of polyamory or poly relationships, or poly experiences. Maybe not relationships, but experiences, triads, other things. For people together, and ideas that are more innovative. But then again, I like the simplicity of diving deep with one person. If they happen to be a fun, optimistic person, but then eventually, the shortcomings of each other, if communication isn't really quality, um, eventually starts to deteriorate and wear on that relationship to the point where it's no longer fun or enjoyable. It's just obligation. Now, when you marry someone, in my mind, it's a done deal. You kind of have to stick it out. But the thing is you need to find ways to rekindle that, to keep feeding that, to find ways to compromise, to find ways to show enough love. And the main thing is lack of selfishness. It's about investing the time and energy in all ways to put the other person first. Always. If you do that, and obviously if there's like both people are wanting to do something for the other person, it's the same thing. One person has to just say, okay, I'll accept that, even though I would be happy to do it for you too, or they return the favor. Um, and being somebody who's pansexual and also versatile, meaning I can assume either role. With women, I'm unsure. Having no sexual experience other than, well, as I find that naked women, if it's sexually portrayed in a good way, I can ejaculate to. Um, just like heterosexuality. It just seems like I've verified the fact that although I haven't produced the action, I've ground up against a woman with clothes on. I've gotten her riled up to the point where a couple of women wanted sex, took their clothes off, but I didn't touch their body parts. Well, I've touched a woman's butt naked, but other than that, no. But it was a massage, so, you know, I was curious, you know. I was curious. Yeah. So, back to one of my favorite subjects. Now, I am tired, and it's important that I make these videos because I want to let people to know that a beautiful person lived and loved them. All of them. That love the entire human race. And even the bad people, I love. Sometimes the bad people that are hurting tons of people, you know, who commit genocide and things like that, I would still love them as a person, although as a society we may have to eliminate them because they are a threat to the greater good of the whole of the human race. And in love for their tormented souls, we send them to whatever force created them, if there is such thing as a judgment for those actions or a karmic debt they need to pay, or being reincarnated as a very small life form. Those things are all potential things. But then again, if Jesus Christ is real, and if he does judge, who's to say? It's out of our hands. It's not our concern. And that love doesn't always translate, and that's in a more, not even romantic, but in a more brotherly, sisterly type of love, where it's kind of like how you love your neighbor. You're not interested. I mean, if your neighbor's not attractive to you sexually, you're not aroused by a neighbor. That's how I feel about much of the human race, but much of the rest of the human race, or a fraction, I am very sexually aroused by, specifically blonde women, Asian women, put together transgender people, because they care about their appearance and hygiene, which is important to me. I just dated this gay guy who just like never showered, basically, and I'm just like, dude, you gotta freaking shower, your hair's way greasy. And I've had this makeup on all day, and prepared for voice chat, wanted to really be put together, even went to Sephora, put forth a lot of effort, just things didn't quite line up the way I had hoped. Missing my boyfriend here and there, triggers reminding me of the good times, just induced feelings of sadness, as I'm sure he's experiencing, with my choice to cut things off, to have to think about whether it's even healthy for me to have a friendship with an individual like that. Like, I care, I want him to be happy, I don't want him to like do something rash, but that's all within his power. He has the tools, he has the assets to fix his situation as best as he can, you know, with those professionals, and who knows the time frame. And that's the thing, is this, like, when you're a parent or a son, or, you know, like, say I was to adopt a kid someday, or probably a teenager, I would be obligated to have that unconditional love for him, even because my parents, and not in the way I would do it, but who's to know until you're a parent what you can really handle, because you're human too. But you know, I mean, if I had a kid who just like went to Bible camp or Baptist camp and converted to that, and came home and just would start bashing on me about his religion or whatever, I mean, like, that would be very hard. And although I would still love and accept him, it would be very difficult. And I think that's probably where my parents are at with accepting, or not accepting, but trying to tolerate my orientation, which I have made a near obsession until I finally locked into pansexuality, and it's a done deal. I don't know about transsexuals. I've never been with one. I don't rule out any individual I'm sexually attracted to, and I can't define all of those individuals. And the thing is like, I do rule out things like kids, animals, children, anyone under the age of consent in this country, simply from the fact that I don't believe they have enough life experience. Um, Basically, it's just not, they can't really give consent. And I've met enough individuals, or a couple that have went through that, and they are pretty messed up on the inside, and it's almost like they need a father figure, but who's sexual with them, and that's odd. Or a mother figure who's sexual with them, or however they were not treated in a respectful manner in that regard. And I think when you're an adult, or you're a young adult, or even in your later teens, it's a bit easier to get over. And I don't want to like compare anything, but it just seems like, in my personal opinion, it would be harder for me to be abused sexually as a child versus being abused as um, a young adult, or a teenager, like in my later teens. I think it was like 19 or whatever. So the thing is that the nice thing about, and I want to make a correlation here, and I don't know if anyone's ever done this or if it's a little bit uncouth or whatever, but the thing is you know, when you have when you participate in bondage with somebody who you love, they love you. It's consensual. It's almost like you're putting on a play for each other, but it's more real than a play because you don't know what's going to happen next, and it's intense, and that's the whole point. You want to make it so intense that it drowns out those other experiences, and it works because it just seems like, wow, the person I'm with is powerful, and they're more powerful than the people who took advantage of me. And I think that that's basically the fundamental proper way to participate in bondage. Now, the level of sadomasochism that's an individual enjoys is up to the individual, and even that level needs to be respected. Basically, if you want your partner to do something they don't feel comfortable with, that's not okay, and you can't pressure them. Similarly, if you're looking for somebody to do something for you and it's extremely important to you, like a fantasy you've had a long time or whatever, and they don't do that, basically you have to figure out if you value that person more than your sexual preferences or roles. Basically, my relationships have been largely with people who identified as tops, who did bottom, but not as readily. And I think there's something wrong with a macho attitude. But then again, having listened to other videos and knowing that it causes some people more pain, and they don't feel an intense pleasure along with it in the beginning like I do. And then the second time it's just basically pleasure, intense pleasure. And the orgasmic experiences are awesome. I've just found that people are just designed inherently differently. They're not all the same, and they're not meant to be. People are individuals. They're free to express their sexuality in the way that both people consensually agree to. Now, does it sometimes branch into territory that is uncomfortable for us? Yes. And the reason is because it's not our preference, Like, basically, say an individual was in another country where the age of consent was like 14 or 13 years old, and then you've got somebody who's 30 or 40 years old, like in their 40s, consensually agreeing with a 13-year-old to have a sexual action. Now, countries like that exist. Now, the thing is there are some young men who prefer an older man. They prefer somebody more experienced. They want that daddy figure. Not a ton of them, but a lot of them. And not for financial reasons. That's the thing. Is it an added benefit? Yes. But is that what they're looking for on an emotional and physical level? No. Because that's what they're attracted to. We may never understand that. Just like you've got a 13-year-old or, you know, 12-year-old who's barely hitting puberty and experiencing those feelings, who's always felt like you just like guys, even if it's been 6 months or a year or two, and he's like, some of them are aggressive in trying to get older guys to be with them. They call that age discrimination. It's like, no, it's the law here. A 15-year-old hit on me hardcore. Another one who was just like 18 or 19. Their libidos are off the charts. And mine are too. Mine is too, but I have the life experience to know where to put on the brakes. And that's where the law is involved. You do not want the law to mess your whole life up because you were dumb, whether or not the kid or teenager consents in the United States of America. In other countries, I hear like Malaysia or whatever, it's known more for prostitution, things of that nature. Those things are more permissible. And as it is permissible, can we make a moral or ethical judgment? You look at ancient Rome and the love those young men and their superiors had, and much of it was a bisexual culture. And they would go home after their battles and that closeness, and they would raise families. They would marry women, and those lovers would remain close to their heart, but there was quite an age gap a lot of the time, and is that wrong? Well, no. I mean, I'm attracted to people with white hair if they have a great body. I'm attracted to young men, but I'm unlikely to engage in an action. If he was attracted to me too, and the law permitted it in the country I was in, I'd feel probably responsible after an action. So it's always a little bit more societally acceptable and a little bit more relatable to be with somebody around your own age, whether it's a man or a woman. Now, the interesting thing when I came out to this young woman, Bray, is that I came out to her as pansexual, and she said, "I'm transgender." And we both smiled, and it was like, wow, we were both worried about the same thing. And then I ran into another bisexual person, in Sephora. And she got my number, and we talked for a while about a very similar situation with the people who we were with medical conditions that they just didn't handle very well. And it was affecting our happiness, and very kind young woman, and we chatted for a while. She's probably older than me by 10 years or 5 to 10 years or somewhere in that range, but seemed, based on her personality, similarly to my mom, to be more around my own age, despite the physical body being a bit older. And so age doesn't determine attraction. Although I'm not attracted to her personally, I have been attracted to a wide range of individuals. And I'm comfortable with that. It's painful in my heart, because there is many people in the state who are uncomfortable with things that I just find more natural. It's almost more comfortable to be sexual than not for me. To be openly, like even to wear shirts or my dress or anything that just promotes sex appeal. That's what people value. One thing they value in me. There's lots of things they value, but intelligence and my artistic abilities, my other talents. But the draw to mate or to be intimate or to procreate, those things come from a mutual draw, regardless of any other factors. Like, I may be attracted to this 15-year-old that was hitting on me, and if the laws were to allow, I'm sure I could have given him his first experience, just like the 19-year-old that was hitting on me, but he's still discovering his, trying to become comfortable with his transgender identity, so I just couldn't act when I feel somebody's more vulnerable, despite their forward approach, which happens with most people, because I just radiate my root chakra. It's like I come in contact with people and it's like, oh, I take off, I mean, look, I mean, right now I'm trying to talk to you in a more sophisticated way, but I need to get down to earth here and talk about brass tacks and why BDSM excites me, and kind of want to talk to you a little bit about my fantasies, and a little bit about what it is that gets me off or turns me on by the whole idea of it. And first, I gotta get comfortable. So I'm gonna take off my leather jacket and take off my layers and get a little bit more comfortable and talk to you about sex. So I basically learned by example, by Yahweh, and by a young man who was an escort. And I'm not an escort, although it would be very easy to be if I was I had my back up against a wall. I mean, for crying out loud, I was offered $240 to nude model for the David. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I dropped it to $220, and I haven't heard from the guy because we offended him, and I basically have to crawl back and say, look, I'm real sorry about everything. I mean, I am new to all of this, and I know what I feel I'm worth, but ultimately it's your money, it's your creative expression, and I need to honor that. And I feel like my manager, being my partner, wasn't as comfortable as he originally said, and my wishy-washiness about the whole thing, thinking it might hurt my career, but really wanting to do it for free because I value the David, and it's extremely flattering to say, you look like the David. And I was told I look like James Dean last night. I've been told that I look like a number of other actors. It's just like, I do have that look, and I think that it's not like it has to be, as my dad said, it doesn't have to be my identity. Yeah, these curtains are extremely distracting to me because they're like extremely childish, and I am talking about something that is not in this country considered childish at all. Okay, it's better. And I'm probably gonna take a few photos as well. So I bought this spiked collar, and the reason is because I bought the blue, the undertone, which a lot of it's just like straight black, and in my fantasies I always thought it would be straight black, but I got into the situation, I was just like, be nice to have the straight black one and the blue one, but the thing is the blue one makes my eyes pop. And the funny thing is when I put it on, I felt a thrill rush through me, and it was almost orgasmic. It felt right. That's the best way to say it. It just sort of thrilled me just to put on bondage gear. And I think it's just a verification that I like kink. I mean, a lot of it's how you're introduced. The gay guy I was with was a bit into kink, and I think maybe some of that and the other people I dated rubbed off, but I don't think it's just that. I think innately, I have an interesting dichotomy inside of me. When I was a young man, I was kind of picked on at school verbally, and through my middle school years, actually, by a friend and and his brother, and you know, I was just basically picked on and abused in different ways, made to feel weaker than I was. I was extremely confident as a child. Led my brother and sister around on adventures. They respected me. I started grade school. That went fairly well, although I was extremely detached in social situations that wasn't like one-on-one or a small group of people like five or under. And as I grew older, it became like three or under, and then it became like, okay, who's friendly to me, and I can handle like one semi-accepting person at a time versus a whole flock of them. I don't want to feel ganged up on, you know what I mean? At least in one way. um, yeah. So I put this collar on. I felt a thrill, and you know, bondage gear is expensive, but this was reasonable. I think it was $30 or so for this particular collar, and I wanted something that was just more representative of me. You know, the blue makes my eyes pop out. I mean, you can't. I don't know if you can really see in this lighting, but it does make my eyes pop out, and then the spikes sort of represent that I am extremely powerful, because after those experiences happened, I started martial arts at age 12 or 13. That continued up in that confidence through all my teenage years into my young adulthood, and with very brief interludes because of health reasons, um, I continue to practice that, although I've switched over to a different form of exercise, um, sexual exercise, as well as more things like the pull-up bar, and you know, a healthy diet and things like that. Surfing has been a big thing the last year, and you know, push-ups and different other things to focus in on specific body parts. Having, you know, lifted weights and having done a lot of things to create a sort of almost Abercrombie look, or probably my body type is more resembles something like Gucci, you know, suits that you know, just people would consider that I have that look. What is a look really? It's not about that I want to really discuss. Other than I feel it's essential to have a high level of attraction to participate in BDSM, because then innately you're not doing it for money, you're not doing it for any other reason other than love. And people may not understand how BDSM can translate to love, especially when they're more vanilla. And I also enjoy that too, like the slow, sensual rose petals, bottle of champagne, and the romance. I love that stuff so much. But then there comes times when I'm walking through the door and I want passion, and I want it strong and hard, and I want them to come at me with everything they got, and I want to be swept away. And I think many gay guys, especially who bottom, just want power. They want to be swept away. They don't want to be hesitantly asked, or not even asked, or approached. It's like you having to go after the top. Doesn't make a lot of sense to most people who bottom. Because I'm versatile, I see both roles. I have a very comprehensive understanding of both roles. I need to do more topping, and it does take a lot of confidence, and there is some anxiety there until you get used to it with different individuals. But the thing is there is risk involved, and more risk actually in oral sex, I think, than even anal, as long as you're protected with a condom and have lots of lube. From the standpoint of HPV, it's a vaccine people need to get. Also, I'm sure by the time people actually watch this video, there's going to be other STIs. Hopefully, our country and scientists invest enough to cure STIs to make premarital sexual intercourse with people other than just virgins, which tends to be most of the population, safe. Like, not just safer sex, but safe sex, you know what I mean? And that would be great. It's beautiful to create a life, but it's also great to choose when that life is created. Um, and innately, if you take that risk, I almost think that with a woman, you take that responsibility. The child comes along, you're the father. Does that mean you end up with the wife? I don't know, but you're responsible, in my opinion. And in my opinion, also, I consider abortion murder, and I've had that view for many years, and it's very many people would debate with me on that, but people don't view them as human beings until they, at different stages, and it is between a woman and her doctor, and I can't stop it because I don't have the energy to fight against stuff. I let people who are in politics decide those sorts of laws because, like, although I'm may be opposed to it, I'm also not a woman. I don't know what it would feel like to have something growing inside you that maybe wasn't consensual. Maybe it could kill you. Maybe it could cause you severe health problems. There's a lot of things that go along with having a child that I don't even want to discuss right now. Now let's set that entire subject aside and not address it in this video, because although with my diverse attractions, being with a woman, it's almost like anal sex may be safer, but I don't even know about that with douching. It's like, condom breaks, sperm gets in, bam, baby. It's almost like she should be on the pill, douche every area, and just, protect herself, have respect for herself, just as you do the same for you. Because if I was with a woman, there may be days I want anal play, and that would just, in their minds, probably make my sexuality at a more reasonable level, where I'd have like 4 or 5 days where I'd be super sexual, and then 4 or 5 days where I would be more into bottoming, and if they were open-minded, if they were transgender, if they were bisexual, if anything like that, they might consensually use a dildo on you, to give you that sensation, that orgasm that you can't really achieve very good by yourself. It's just not within your power usually, at least with the way I orgasm, because it has to be powerful. So it's like when I bottom, power's best. Like even if it's slow and sensual, it's just like when it comes to the point where there's penetration, sure, you can play with it for a while. It feels awesome to tempt, to touch, to arouse, and then to penetrate, And I'm still learning that, to see what men like. I mean, I'm not what most people consider a top. They think, oh, you're a power bottom or you're a bottom. And I get that a lot. It's just only because they want to assert the fact that they want to remain a top. They don't want to be penetrated. The unfortunate thing is I'm not, from the videos I've learned, it's just like, don't look for somebody who can't do both roles if you can. It's not like they're second-class citizens. It's just like they can't really have the perspective. Just like somebody who's hetero or somebody who's gay will never have the same perspective as a bisexual because they can step into both worlds very easily. It's almost like a zebra that can become, a black horse, or can become a white horse. But yet they're still a zebra, even though they can shapeshift into one or the other. The thing is you want to be upfront. You're like, I'm a zebra. Yo, I'm a zebra. I got it? Okay. And nobody will get it, probably, because there's not that many openly bisexual men. You just look on YouTube, everyone's like, I'm gay, I'm coming out as gay. It's like, great for you. That's cool. But I'm looking for videos on bisexuals. There's a lot of women who come out as that. It's more societally acceptable. But there's people like Olsom and other things who inspire me. But there's also homosexuals who inspire me. Or have inspired me. Davey Wavy is funny. Pretty openly non-committal, I would say. But how am I to know? It just seems like monogamy's not really in the cards for him. I respect him, but I don't know if he's caught anything. I mean, that's a lot of risk. He's been with a lot of boys. And, somehow he's had the assets to do it. I don't really know exactly how. But I respect people who stand up for what they value, even if society, even if the largely dominant religion, which is different forms of Christianity here in the U.S., frown on that, as well as Judaic faith, Muslim faith. There's quite a few major religions that frown on it. Then there's other huge religions in other countries, China, Hinduism, um, Buddhism, things like that, who just are more tolerant, or openly accepting things like Wiccan, are basically more pagan practices or more ancient ways, viewed those people as beautiful and positive. So I want to put BDSM in a much more positive light. I view it as therapeutic if it's with the right individual. Obviously, if somebody takes it too far and doesn't respect somebody, it can easily turn into some sort of sexual assault, even if it's within a committed partnership, because always there's consent. Unless there's an upfront understanding like, yo, today's a non-consent day, do whatever you want, go crazy. Just don't, damage me hardcore so I can't recover kind of thing. Set boundaries, rules. They call them safe words. I don't know a lot except what I've heard in passing. I haven't read books on the subject. I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know a lot. So my understanding of BDSM is from, a couple of videos and mostly my fantasies and my own perspective. And it's more pure in my mind, as I was inspired by a couple of things, but I haven't delved deep into it. I've seen some vids online that were like, whoa, that's a little bit far out for me. So I'd say I'm new to it and I'm into the light stuff. I'm into the stuff that, I can get scratches, I can get some welts that'll go away in a day or two or whatever. But I have specific things I like. I like to be chained up with my arms above my head. And then I like to be chained to the floor as well. Now, I'm going to get further comfortable and show you basically exactly why bondage is personally appealing to me. And I'll share with you some intimate fantasies of mine that haven't been fulfilled yet, and talk about a couple of fantasies that were mind-blowing. And those were just spontaneous. No, neither of us, me and my last partner, neither of us knew exactly how it was supposed to go. We just winged it. I'm like, look, here's a chain, here's a dog chain me up, and go crazy. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So it's nice when you're BDSM, everyone's not. When you wear more black, you wear more chains and stuff like that. And, basically it's easier to identify. Emos, people like that, are going to be more open to the idea of BDSM. Just because, they're more... But I don't really like the idea of dark BDSM. I'm more into, it's not dark in my view, it's just powerful and dominating. And I believe there's domination in nature. So it's the same concept, except in a human sense, with toys to amplify the feeling of dominating and being dominated. I like the idea because a lot of times I would lay on a massage table and I would get a massage. It would be very pleasurable, but I also couldn't move. I couldn't interact a ton with the person giving the massage because I didn't have control over my body. I had given it to another person so that they could pleasure me. In that instance for money, but of course they didn't pleasure me sexually, and a lot of times after a massage by a professional or whatever, I'd jack off because that was what I wanted. I wanted to be touched on the inside of my thighs. I wanted a sensual, I wanted an erotic massage. I didn't want just a massage. Now, BDSM is kind of the thing that happens when you walk through the front door. You've cleaned beforehand, but it's just you walk through the door. It's spontaneous. It's just you don't know what's going to happen. It just does. So that's why, in my personal opinion, if you're bottom, you should always be clean. It's you use the restroom, you douche. And the thing is be with a partner that makes it worth your while. because that can kind of be a pain in the ass sometimes for some people. For me, I don't mind it because I'm so used to it, and it's just like, and I'm just done, you know, because I always want to be clean. There's other people who just don't care about that stuff as much. And I admit that once you get to the point where you love a person enough, you know, and there's always condoms and stuff, so it's not as bad, but it's always like you get to a point where you check, you know, you check with your finger to make sure the person's clean. But you know, it could be a girl or a guy, and that's the thing: is anal sex is not, it's not biologically, you know, as far as a biological sex, it's not specific to that. Which is why it's kind of like, well, if you top a girl in her anus, you know, has she lost her virginity? If a guy tops you, have you lost yours? If you top a guy, did you lose yours? All this like idea of virginity is for another video, I suppose. But let's move into the fun territory. We've talked a little bit more seriously when the honest truth is this brings me great joy to share these things because they're deeply personal to me, and I think that everyone's fantasies are to them. I think everyone's form of sexuality is deeply personal to themselves. And I think that no one should judge what two individuals consensually want to do. You don't have to broadcast it to the world unless you feel comfortable doing so. But the truth is that it's a little odd when sometimes when you're versatile, it's hard to know how to represent yourself, because you can feminize your features or make them more masculine, especially when you're a guy like me. Darker eyebrows can make you be more masculine. You know, wearing black can. Wearing a dark hoodie can create a sort of vibe. You know, growing some facial hair. Things like that create a more masculine appearance. Now, if you're feeling like bottoming, you know, you may want to create a more boyish appearance. And that the only reason you would do that is because it appeals to the person topping as a way for them to feel more dominant. And it also helps you feel more submissive. And the thing is, there people who are naturally submissive may not find a lot of appeal in BDSM. The thing is powerful people find a lot of appeal in it because it's foreign to them. It's something that they wish they feel like they're missing out on. People are always wanting what they don't have, what they feel are missing out on. But this has practical reasons behind it. I don't need to justify it. I just want to share it. So, moving on, the fun stuff. So, yeah. So, feminizing features. Like, I was wearing this cute hoodie a little while ago. And, well, my last boyfriend said it was one of the best things he saw on me. And he was a very muscly top, so I can see why that would be appealing to him. So I'll just throw it on for you. This is kind of how I look today. And, you know, you wear something like this and, you know, you make yourself look cuter than normal. Obviously, to make myself even, like, cuter, I could take these eyebrows off and create an even more feminizing look. But because I'm versed today, I kind of mixed and matched a little. Because it was like, yeah, I could bottom, but I could also top, you know? So you kind of have to like represent yourself the way you feel inside. In my personal opinion, as an artist, it's really important to me. Sometimes it takes a while laboring over what shirt or what clothes to wear because it needs to represent how I feel that day about myself. So when I'm projecting, in the number one way, besides your innate genetic looks and how you take care of yourself, your hygiene, you know, makeup, other things like that, or lack of makeup, you know, facial hair, lack of facial hair, how you choose to represent yourself through your clothing says a lot about how you feel about yourself, about how you feel about clothing, you know, what you value, you know, if you view it as an art or you just kind of just throw on whatever happens to be around at Walmart or the DI or or your mom's house or wherever you get your clothes. And other people like invest a lot in malls, and they go shopping for deals, and they want to find something really artistic, or they want to find something masculine. They want to find something that shows off their body well. So, because I'm feeling more like a top today, it would be more beneficial for me to like just straight up take this chain off, because frankly it's more of a bottoming thing. So looking more masculine is beneficial, especially when you're with women. They value masculinity, many of them. They don't really want a weak guy. They like a guy to tell them what to do, even if they say they don't, because they need to feel power dominated. And it's almost like girls sometimes like to take the lead, but at the end of the day, they're always the one getting fucked. Like, unless they're using a dildo on you, and that's not really fucking you, it's just like using a toy to help pleasure you, if that's something you enjoy. So it's almost like they're doing you a service. Yeah. Wow. That kratom just gets stuck in your throat. And you talk a lot, on this stuff. And now, before going on, I'm going to get a drink of water, and I will do BDSM Part 2 in a moment.